Hello and welcome back to Films on High. This is Decca.
This is Alex.
Today the film that we're going to review is The Transporter, directed by Yuen. This came out in 2002 and it is an action thriller starring Jason Statham, Shukri, Matt Schultz, François Berléand, and Rick Young. A criminal transporter who makes a career out of driving criminals from point A to point B, but has a set of rules that he is fixated on. One day, unfortunately, breaks his rule, which lead to events that turns his world upside down. Will he ever get his simple life back? So, what'd you think about this film?
Well, this is a film that it hasn't aged particularly well, but that demands the question of how good it was when it first came out. I don't know, I didn't see it, but this movie is responsible for unleashing the plague of Jason Statham as an action star. It kind of came out of nowhere, because before this, Jason Statham was known for movies like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, which were more these weird comedic gangster films. They weren't really super action focused, and that wasn't the kind of character he was playing. But I guess Jason Statham is proficient in martial arts, and he keeps he works on his body. He's in the gym a lot, so somehow he was able to kind of transition into this action star role. And this movie's really weird because it's like a French production, for one thing, starring a British actor who was kind of like an unknown at the time, not a guy who had a lot of juice. It doesn't have a particularly strong or well-known cast, so I'm kind of surprised that this movie made any impression in the wider mainstream. It's, I guess if I try to contextualize it within this period of early 2000s, even then, it's not particularly impressive. It's kind of it's a movie it feels like it's a movie that was kind of made up as they went along. It's really thin on plot, and it just feels like kind of an amalgamation of bad action cliches and some really kind of silly ideas. And I don't know, like I said, I'd never seen it before, but just based on what I'd heard about the movie and seeing trailers and stuff, I assumed it was going to be different from this. Instead, it ended up being really sort of lame and almost awkward with its approach, where it has it's I don't know if the movie was attempting to be comedic, but there were definitely a lot of moments that just came off as stupid and not particularly well thought out. And I guess if you want to look at the movie just as an excuse to have a lot of action sequences, that's fine, but even from an action perspective, I didn't think it was that impressive.
As a kid, I watched this film just surfing on channels, trying to find something good to watch, and I believe it was Showcase where I got to see this film for the first time. And it was kind of oh, okay, cool. This bald dude that, he's a transporter, basically. He has a set of rules and stuff. I was just kind of okay, this is whatever type of thing. And, there wasn't anything else I could just watch any stuff, so I kept watching it. And with a nostalgic view, I will say, yeah, I agree with, no, it doesn't age well at all, because it has a lot of misanthropic ideas involved in the film, almost 90% of it, and it's just,
if it had misanthropic ideas, it would have been good. It has stupid ideas.
Misogynistic ideas. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but that was the whole that would felt more just a product of the time, and a really bad characterization and screenwriting. The weirdest thing about the movie, it's first of all, this whole concept of freelance getaway drivers who do jobs for the mafia, or criminals or armed robbers or whatever. I always thought that was a pretty fucking stupid idea to begin with. It's an idea you see in some fiction, and I don't know, maybe there's some truth to it in real life, but I just hate this cliche of oh, I'm such a great driver and I'm an expert and people hire me. And this whole concept of him being a transporter or a driver, it really only comes up at the very beginning of the film, where we need to have this extended action set piece involving him eluding these cops. And it's we see how meticulous he is and blah, 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 blah. And they set up this weird relationship he has with this cop. Like, the whole idea of him being an expat in France, either, that's not particularly... Because he's in France, and we're told that he was, like, a soldier in the British Army, I guess, in the past, but it just feels, like, random. Like, they couldn't even come up with, like, a good backstory or a way to really make it fit. So he just kind of seems like this random guy out here, and, like, he has this thing going on with this cop where... Like, the cop wants to kind of bring him down, but, they sort of like each other and respect each other in a weird way, so... The movie's almost built on this foundation of cliches, and yeah, he gets involved in this job where he's transporting, another product or another object. He doesn't know what it is, but he finds out that it's a young Japanese woman. And when she gets introduced into the plot, like, yeah, the whole misogyny thing, like, again, that's more like a product of its time, but her character just comes across as, like, really lame and half-baked, and he treats her like kind of like shit. Like at the beginning we see him like, he's holding her on a leash and, sending her off to piss in the woods like an animal. And then she kind of starts inexplicably falling for him, although, that might have just been her trying to manipulate him over to her side. And she's got something going on with her father, who I guess is involved in this human trafficking operation. And like, the movie is just so shit, because, like, these plot beats are just, like, falling all over each other out of nowhere. Like, it really feels like, they sat around and were like, okay, what happens next? He gets this job, and then, and, like, he completes the job with the Japanese girl, but then these guys, for whatever reason, try to kill him and blow up his car. So now it's personal, and he goes back and fucks them all up, and he saves the Japanese girl again, like... I can't even remember her name. Lei. Her name's Lei or Lai. Yeah, it's Lai because they make a terrible pun about her being a liar at one point in the movie. Ugh. Anyway, so he gets this thing going on with her, and, she inexplicably starts acting like this perfect housewife and, trying to, like, endear herself to him, and they have no chemistry whatsoever. And, like, interestingly, in the original script, the main character was supposed to be gay. Mm-hmm. But then I guess they decided against that, and they just threw in this random, pointless sex scene between the two of them. And they have no chemistry whatsoever, and it's apparent that they didn't, like, change the rest of the script too much, because they didn't give him any romantic chemistry. Like, it's so weird that you design this character to be gay, which actually would have made him kind of interesting. That would have been, like, different. You don't see many, like, gay action heroes. That would have been, like, a change of pace for that particular period, especially. But, like, no, then you just decide, fuck it, that might alienate some of the bros out there, so let's just throw in, like, a random sex scene with a woman to prove he's straight. But, again, the chemistry isn't there, and it just feels pointless, and it kind of makes him look like an idiot, because then it turns out that she was kind of playing him, and, like, so we get, like, for a lot of the movie, there's not much tension going on, and like I said, we're told that he was a transporter and a driver, so we assume that's going to be his specialty, but... No, he just turns out to be, like, epic, ultra badass, like, ex-soldier guy who's screwing, like, he's messing everybody up and, all these epic fights and, like, if I was just going to evaluate the movie on a purely action basis, because, again, like, maybe I'm overthinking the plot, like, it's a dumb, fun action movie, but to me, the action, like, wasn't really appealing, and one of the biggest reasons for that is the movie doesn't feel consequential. The stakes don't feel high. The plot is so confused and so convoluted that you're never even sure what the object is. Like, what is he fighting for? Why is he involved,
It's got cool little shootouts, a couple of scenes where it feels high octane in one sense, and the way that it was filmed, it does feel like this is back in the 2000s where they didn't have the best cameras. You could tell that they were behind another car, quick cuts here and there type of thing. So for the driving portions of the film, even though there's not a lot, was
like
kind of
one
like
driving scene. Like,
exactly, and it was just kind of like, okay, cool, and then the whole highway scene as well. But one thing I did notice about this film is that this was also the start of, if you ever noticed Jason Statham's movies, a lot of his action role type of films usually starts with V. You have this, you have the Mechanist, you have The Wrath of Man, you have all these types of movies where he would always play this almost similar type of role where it's always the stoic action hero who you don't know what his goals are type of
Couldn't
thing.
even fucking do that right. Like, this guy, like, movies like The Machinist or whatever, that, first of all, I'm pretty sure that's a remake of a fucking Charles Bronson movie, or The Mechanic, whatever, but, like, again, where did this impulse come from? Where it's like, we're gonna market this guy as an action star. Like, was it a fucking slow year? Like, was there just nobody presenting themselves? Like, I don't want to insult Jason Statham or anything, but I prefer him in movies like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I feel like he works better in that context with this kind of comedic energy. Like, I don't buy him as this badass action hero guy, and, like, they're so fucking interchangeable, especially during this period. Like, maybe it was an attempt to make, like, a British version of fucking Vin Diesel, I don't know. But, like, I just don't care, and I was kind of shocked, like, because when you have a movie like this, like, you know, it was written by Luc Besson and it was made in France, so you would expect, like, kind of a sort of European take or, like, maybe a little bit of eccentricity. And there's, like, not even much of that going on. Like, everything feels out of place. Like, the movie doesn't have a coherent feel. Like, Jason Statham doesn't even feel, like, the Frank Martin character doesn't feel like he belongs in this particular environment. Like, and like, the whole, like, you know, you want to get into spoilers, although fucking spoiling this movie doesn't even matter, but, like, whatever passes for a plot in this film and his involvement, okay, like, he gets involved with this, like, at first he goes back and messes these guys up and he rescues the girl, Lai, and, you know, at first that seems more like he's just pissed off because they blew up his, like, super special car that he's so in love with, but whatever. So, like I said, they have this, you know, they have sex or whatever, they start to get close with each other, and then she sort of starts imploring him, like, you have to help me save all of these people, there's a human trafficking operation, 400 people are being transported in a fucking cargo or whatever, and at first she says that her father is one of them, but then it turns out that her father is one of the bad guys who's, like, involved in this whole operation, which... again, raises questions to why she was being fucking trafficked in the first place or what any of this is all about. If you're expecting an explanation, you're not going to get one. Just don't even think about it. The screenwriters clearly didn't. But anyway, so then we go into, like, now he's all gung-ho about stopping this. Like, he wants to save these people when he has no proof that this is even a thing. He has no personal stake in it. Like, it almost comes out of nowhere. And, you know, like, she tells him, okay, there are people being smuggled, but she's already lied to you once, so why would you believe her? And then the fucking bad guy just literally whispers in his ear, by the way, there are people being smuggled. And it's like, literally, that's our confirmation. So just on the word of this scummy bad guy, now he's going to get involved in this. And, you know, he's taking a stand against human trafficking and shit. But you were, like, human trafficking earlier in the movie. You were trafficking this young woman and holding her on a leash and fucking sending her out into the woods to piss like an animal in a really creepy and demeaning way.
It's all the idea of, like, the moral compass.
Oh, yeah. Oh, me trafficking one woman is okay, but them trafficking, like, 400 people, including children, that's where I draw the line. So now we need a bunch of crazy action sequences and... You know, like, at one point he hijacks a plane, he's fucking, you know... It does end with kind of like a car chase where he's, like, hijacking the trucks and stuff, but even that, like... Again, like, the whole thing of how the movie is aged poorly, like... A movie like this, like, there's no emotional core to it. You know, you don't really care about the story or the characters, so all it really has going for it is the scale of the action... But, you know, you even look at something like Live Free or Die Hard, like, that movie, as extreme and insane as it was, there was more going on, or, like, the average Michael Bay film, like, this film fails to me because it doesn't have enough substance, like, as an actual movie, and the action is just not balls to the wall enough, and you've got weird scenes, like, he fucking fights a bunch of dudes in, like, a bus, and then he gets all greased up, and they have a big fucking fight where they're all greasy and slipping around on each other, and he's throwing bicycles into the grease and knocking guys over. And I'm literally just sitting here like, where did you even conceive of this? Like, at what point did this enter into your minds that this is a good idea for a scene? Like, it's clever, it's different, but it's still kind of bizarre. And, you know, again, with the whole idea of him... previously, like, you know, being written as a gay man, it sort of makes, you know, it makes the whole scene kind of even funnier, you know, like, it gives it this kind of innuendo quality. And then when he's escaping this big exploding boat, he has like this final battle with this dude, and he like uses the guy's body as a human shield as he's going into the water and dodging this explosion. And then he grabs this dying man and kisses him to suck the remaining oxygen out of this man's lungs to sustain him so he can swim away. And like, okay, it's practical, but it's just funny. Like, it's comical. Like, you know, like, it's just a goofy moment. And the movie almost can't decide whether it wants to be sort of goofy or not. And it just, like, I don't know. To me, because especially you look at a movie like this, you look at Luc Besson, like, he made the movie Leon the Professional. And, like, that was a movie that it had some really good action sequences, like some tension and stuff, like good characters, but you know, there was like good characterization, there was like an interesting kind of story going on, something unconventional, like, you know, this relationship between this hitman and this young girl, and, you know, like sort of playing with like, you know, edgier sort of material, you know, like that was a movie that sort of took risks and it had like interesting ideas behind it. But this movie is just running, it has like no like interesting creative ideas in the script. Like, that's why I say they should have just gone ahead and made him gay. That would have been different, you know, that would have been something I hadn't really seen before, at least. But instead you just get this really stock character who just, you know, he's a professional who has rules and standards, and he almost through like a comedy of errors gets involved in like this situation to save a bunch of people. Like, the funniest moment is like the cop I mentioned that he has this, you know, relationship with. Basically, the whole reason he ends up going and, like, saving all these people is because the cop was too lazy to do anything about it. Like, you know, the cop basically just lets him go because, like, yeah, you go handle this. I want to fucking get drunk tonight. Like, I don't want to do any actual work. So it just makes the movie so, like, goofy. And, like, maybe if they just went, like, balls to the walls with the goofiness, I would have enjoyed it a bit more. But it just ends up being this kind of weird, uneasy hybrid. And like, I guess during that period, people were kind of hungry for, like, new action stars. Like, you know, we hadn't really had, like, a new action hero in a while, so this was enough to tide people over. Like, it obviously had an impact. They made sequels and shit, but, like, to me, it was like, really? This? Because, you know, I'd heard about this movie for so many years, and finally seeing it, I was like, wow, this is, like, you know, I wasn't expecting much, but this was below my expectations.
See, maybe that's another factor of your enjoyment of this movie. Maybe as a young person, it would have not been as bad, and just watching it with the lens of time. But I can look at this movie and objectively say it's not as good as I remember. Because, again, as a kid, I thought this movie was the shit, where I was just like, oh, cool, you know, action scenes, fighting scenes. I think I omitted that whole scene of the grease thing because it was just, yeah. But overall, for an action film, there's a lot more, much better than this film that have done the same idea. Even in a way, this almost reminded me of Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan, where that movie is much better than this.
Well, it's like, you know, a movie designed to, like, break out a star, kind of, you know, like a vehicle for, like, a new action star.
You know, so
I don't know, maybe Transporter 2 is better.
I don't know, but my rating for a film like this, with nostalgic lenses on, I will give it a solid 2 out of 5.
I'm going to give it a 1.5 out of 5. Which, you know, that 0.5 I feel is generous, but whatever. But, like, again, I just felt it was so, like I said, it's a movie that has not aged particularly well. Like, if you want to go back and watch, like, the origins of Jason Statham's action career, I guess. But, like, it just, it's weird because it's a movie, like, it doesn't have that kind of balls and grit that the late 90s action movies had. And it doesn't have the more kind of interesting, because I make fun of John Wick and how it's so melodramatic with him being so fucking, you know, mopey and depressed and shit, but at least they're attempting to give, like, some kind of substance, or, like, this was just, like, you know, adventures of a completely fucking boring, you know, asshole who's inexplicably good at everything, and, like, I don't know, I just really didn't dig it, and to me it's, like, so forgettable. Like, even Crank was much better than this. Like, Crank was a lot better than this because that movie had the balls to just be absurd. You know, like, they weren't trying to even, there was no illusion of seriousness, no illusion of trying to give, like, a coherent plot. Like, if you're going to make a Jason Statham action movie, you might as well just go that route, where it's just so balls to the walls absurd, where it becomes, enjoyable enough. Like, this was just lightweight and not particularly impressive.
So, have you seen the film? What'd you think about it? What's your favorite Statham movie? Let us know down in the comments down below. But until then, this has been Film on High.
Peace.
Later.